Hey guys, Sean here. Welcome back to another vlog. Hope you guys are doing well. Hope you're prepared. If you've seen the title and clicked on it, then you probably have an idea what this is going to be about. Obviously, this is a departure from my normal videos, but it's part of me, so I wanted to cover it. Unless you've been living under a rock, you may have noticed over the past few weeks that there have been a multitude of sightings of UFOs, or as they like to say, UAPs. I don't use the UAP term. I refuse to. I call them UFOs. I've been calling them UFOs most of my life, so that's what I stick with. If somebody wants to invent a brand new term so they can own it, I'm not playing the game. So, but yeah, there have been a rash of sightings over the United States. Majority have been over New Jersey, but they've been popping up all over the place, and it's been globally happening too. There have been two different variations that I've seen. There's the ones that are being labeled as drones, and these are typically drone shaped, but they are large, like massively large, like the size of an SUV in some cases. All of them happening at night. The ones that have drones, they have the flashing colored lights like you would typically see with one of the drones. So, and the others are balls or orbs or globes or plasmoids, as they're being labeled. And these are either circular or tubular in shape. It looks like there has been interactions between the two variations, and it's been interesting to watch. The ones that are typically drone-like, they're very loud. So any videos that I've seen of them, the noise that accompanies them is typical of what you would think when you're seeing a drone. The orbs, as I like to call them, they're quiet. They don't make a noise. And there's been some interactions where it looks like there's, you know, they interact with each other, and the drone flops that down out of the sky, and like, yeah, it looks like it's something is going on. But obviously, if I'm making this, I have an opinion, and my opinion, I believe in it. My first sighting was in 1976, 1977. I witnessed a large group of unidentified flying objects. It was with my entire family. So it was my mother, my father, my sister, and myself. Usually on the weekends, we would get up and go out for car rides for the day. And we were coming home. So it was late afternoon, early evening. We lived on top of a hill, and we were living in Woodstock, New Brunswick at the time. So where we lived was on top of a hill that was over like the valley for the river. So we were on one side of the river, and we were coming up to, it was a horse racing track that was there. And I think it was my sister that mentioned, it was either my sister or my mother, saying, "Hey, look at that." And we looked, and in the sky was this ball, giant orb. It was kind of an orangey, white, yellowy color. It wasn't color of the sun, it was just different. And there were all these little cigar shapes that came with it. I would say altogether there was about a dozen ships together. Just one orb, the rest were all cigar shaped. And the cigar shaped they're like a whitish blue color. And they were flying around doing formations. They'd group off together and fly around. The orb tended to stay right where it was for the most part. It did move a few times. One time when it moved, it had like a trail of smoke behind it. But other times too, like the cigar shapes would come up to it, and you would see like a dark opening happen on the ship or on the UFO, and the cigars would go into it. So it was like a portal opening up inside of it. Very reminiscent of watching bees, or an insect, like a hive mentality. At one point, the orb was stationary in one spot. Sorry. And I love how polite they are. So the orb was stationary, and a bunch of cigars encircled it. And which I was watching, because I was fascinated by the orb for the most part, because it behaved differently than the other ones. And so when it was encircled by the cigar-shaped ones, I didn't hear a hum, but it felt like there was something happening. It felt like a hum. And the orb just went bloop. Like it just kind of looked like it popped. Like a bubble popping, and it just disappeared. And it was like it shrunk down in itself. Then the cigar shapes moved around. So I was like, okay, I guess I'm watching cigars now. And as I was paying attention to them, I saw a group of them was making that circular pattern again. And this was like 10 or 15 minutes later. We watched this for about an hour in total. And then when they made that formation again, and all of a sudden it was like the exact same thing. It was like bloop, and then the orb was inside the center of it again. So we watched them until they disappeared. So where we were was on one hill. There was the valley going into the river. There was a hill on the other side. So we're watching them on the other side. So they're on the opposite side. And that side was the American side. So that would head over towards Maine, because Woodstock is real close to Maine. And then we watched them just head off in that direction. They went down over the horizon, like down past what we could see on the hill and the valley on the other side. So obviously we were fascinated by it. My mother was checking in. I think she called a couple of places to inquire if anybody else had reported anything. Nothing. Nobody's reporting anything. Nobody said boo. Except a few days later, we saw an article, and it was the very first time I'd ever seen this, or any of us had. But over in that area in Maine, they'd reported cattle mutilations. So this was, again, the very first time that we'd ever heard about this. And the kettles were missing body parts and drained completely of other fluids, like a vampire. So that was our first interaction. And obviously it left a mark on me. I was very fascinated by them. Even before then, I kind of had a thing for any of the odd stuff, you know. And I liked anything about ghosts and unknown, like archaeology, anything along those lines. But that sparked it even more, because anything that was unknown, I wanted to know more about. So we fast forward a couple of years, and we'd moved to Calgary. So Calgary is on the west coast of Canada, near the Rocky Mountains. And again, I was at home. This time, my parents were off. They were in Europe. My father had won a trip from work, or there was a work trip in Europe, whatever it was. My parents were off, and my grandmother was babysitting my sister and me. So I was in the kitchen doing my thing, and my grandmother said, "Hey, kids, come take a look at this." So my sister and I came running into the living room. So the house we had, again, we were on top of yet another hill. So between us and the city, there was a TV tower or radio tower. I think it was a TV tower. And then beyond that, because we were fairly high up on the hill and you could see bits and pieces of the city. It wasn't the best view, but it was a view. And the front of the house had a great big huge bay window. It was kind of like on a cul-de-sac that was on the side of a street. So instead of like one of those ones where it ends like at the end of a street, this kind of blipped on the side of the street. And it was a cul-de-sac, you know, it had a little median type thing in the center and all these little townhouses or duplexes all around it. And we had the one that was right on the corner of the street. So anyway, my grandmother pointed out these lights that she had seen. And we looked, and it looked like a pair of headlights coming at us. Same color, like an orangey, yellowy headlight, like headlights from the 70s and 80s, not the new ones. The new ones are weird to me, but it does all look like. I didn't see any other lights around it, so we're looking for, if it was planes, you just see the wing lights or something. Nothing. And that was the other thing too, is because I'd seen these things, I was paying attention. So if I'd see something in the air, I would watch it. And if I saw the flashing lights, I was like, okay, that's a plane, or that's something that we made. They said none of that. So it was flying towards us, and it came around the tower. So instead of going over it or to either side, the lights went on either side of the tower, and it broke off. So once it passed the tower and was coming towards us, the one that was on the left-hand side broke off, and that one went down in the valley. So it went down towards what ended up becoming the Olympic Park in Calgary during the Olympics, what they had there. And so that's where they had like the ski jump and the luge and all that. Was not too far from where we were living at the time. They were building it. It hadn't been built yet. So because we were there, it would be, gosh, I think 1980 or so. 80, 81. So anyway, the other light that was on the right-hand side, didn't falter. It kept on coming right towards us. So I was like in the window, and I'm just looking up at it, and it gets closer and closer, and then I can see that it's going to be coming over top of us. So instead of losing sight, I decided to go running out. Now this is evening, so this would be 7, 8 o'clock at night, not late or anything. But it was definitely dark. So I go running out. So the door was on the left-hand side of where we were. And when you're out front, my grandmother and my sister could see me on the street. Hello. 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 And so I go out there to keep an eye on this thing flying. And yeah, it was interesting because it came directly over top. Hello. Hello. I go running outside, and I look up at this light, and it keeps coming, and it comes right over top of me. I'd say it was like maybe a few hundred feet in total above me. It was like I said, it was like a white, yellowy light. And when I was watching it above me, I could faintly see like lights that were encircling it, like they were just like blinking on and off in like a rotational pattern. And I was just enamored by it because I was like, no fear. I wasn't afraid. I wasn't frightened. I wasn't freaked out. I was fascinated by it. And as I was watching it, again, I felt like this hum. Couldn't really hear anything, but it was something that I felt. And I watched it go straight up. And there was like a flash of light right before it went off. And then as soon as I couldn't see it anymore, I came running inside. And saw my grandmother and my sister. They were kind of freaked out, which I assumed was just that they were not as enamored by what we had witnessed as I was. Because again, these were things I was fascinated by. So I come in, I'm all excited about it, and my grandmother says, you should go to bed, kind of calm me down. So I went to bed. I had no idea what time it was, anything. I was just like, I was hyped. And, told my parents when they came back home and everything. But my grandmother and my sister were always quiet about it. So fast forward again to like 2005, I guess. My son had been born, maybe he's like a year and a half old, like 2004 maybe. He was born 2003. So he was a year and a half to 2 years old. We were living in Prince Edward Island at the time, and my grandmother, my mom's mother, was living in Moncton, New Brunswick. So we had come over to visit her, to show off the baby and everything. And maybe he was 6 months old. Whatever. It was around 2003, 2004. So, we're just chatting and reminiscing about things. And for no reason, out of nowhere, my grandmother says, "Hey, do you remember what happened in Calgary?" And I was like, "Yeah, of course I remember." She's like, "Tell me what you remember." And so I did. I, told the tale the way that I did, how I ran outside and the light and flashed and went up into the sky. And, I was still fascinated by it. And she says, "Yeah." She said, "That's everything that happened. But you don't know all of it." And I was like, "Oh, what am I missing?" She's like, "You ran outside. Your sister and I were standing inside watching you. And you were just standing in the street looking up at it. There was a flash of light. And then you were gone." I was like, "What?" She's like, "You disappeared for 4 hours." So she didn't know what to do. She was completely lost because she just watched her grandson pop out of existence. No light other than a flash of light that looked like it came down. She said it was like watching like if you could imagine like water falling, the light had a top to it and it kind of came down and then it was gone. And she didn't know what to do because here she was taking care of her grandchildren and her grandson disappears while under her watch. Not only disappeared, but disappeared in front of her eyes on the street in a flash of light. So her and my sister had stayed in the living room trying to figure out what to do because they were at loss, And so they saw the flash of light again, and then they looked. There I am standing in the exact same spot where I disappeared. I'm looking up, kind of waving at the UFO, and then I come running in. So the reason why they were looking so shocked and they didn't want to talk about it is because their experience was much different than mine. Hello. You want to see?
Hello.
There we can. Yeah. There we go.
Hello.
Hello.
Yeah, I'm from.
I'm from Canada.
Oh, Canada.
Yeah.
Canada.
Yeah.
Canada.
Yeah, and I live here now. Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye. Have a good day. You working?
What?
Are you working?
Yeah, working.
Okay.
Thank you.
Have a great day. Bye. Once again, love getting stopped. So yeah, my grandmother has now ticked a box that had been in my head. I always had assumed something else had happened because there were a few times in my life that things were happening to me that I couldn't explain. One of the times I was in university, so this would have been around 87 or so, and my university roommate was from Atlanta, so it was one of our breaks. We gone off to Atlanta for like a week's vacation just to get away from everything. We stayed with his family, and we ended up going to a mall. Kind of what you did in the 80s. You went to the malls to chill out, relax, meet people, girl watch, whatever it was. And as we're walking, something in my periphery triggers a just abject fear. I couldn't move. I was paralyzed. And my buddy, we were talking, he just kept on walking. He gets 10 feet ahead and turns around and realizes I'm not there, and he sees me just standing in the middle of the mall. He comes back, he goes, "Dude, what's going on?" And I'm like, "There's something over here that's freaking me the fuck out, and I don't know what it is." And he looks and he goes, "It's a bookstore." Fucking freaked out about a bookstore. So I said, "Well, let's go and check it out." So I put my eyes down, I'm staring at the ground, and I'm following him as we're walking into the bookstore. So once we get to the front of the bookstore, I put my eyes up, and there it was, a book. just a book. But it was Whitley Strieber's Communion. Now, I'd never read it, never heard anything about it. I knew Whitley Strieber. He had done The Howling. There was a few books of his that I had read. I liked his horror novels. So I assumed, oh, he's making a UFO book. Cool. Why the fuck did that thing on the front freak me out? So once I got past that shock of seeing it, I was okay. But it was just seeing it, witnessing the creature that was on the front. And this was the first depiction I'd seen of a gray. The aliens with the gray skins, kind of the bulbous head, big black eyes, and the triangular jawline. So I bought the book, I read the book, and I didn't realize until I got into it that, yeah, this is his story, but his abduction story. And it was fascinating. And again, I'm trying to figure out, why the fuck did this scare me so bad? Like, I couldn't understand and justify it. So we go ahead a few years later. It would have been in the early 90s. I was living back up in Canada, and I was going to a movie. Something that I still do to this day. I'll go to a theater and just kind of, what's next? And so I got to go see a movie called Fire in the Sky. And it was an abduction movie. It was a Travis Scott story. And what it was is he was I don't know if he was necessarily a lumberjack, but he worked in the woods. And I don't know if they were doing planting or cutting, whatever it was, but they're out on the West Coast doing this. And him and his buddies are on their way back from work, and they see a light in the woods, and they stop. And Travis goes and he walks further than the rest, and light shines down. He kind of like leans back into it, and he's gone. And he disappears for like 5 days. And it was a decent movie. D.B. Sweeney played Travis Scott. And a bunch of actors, Robert Pattinson, right? The guy that was a Terminator T-1000. He was in it. The kid from E.T. was in it. It's like, it was a good cast. It was a good movie. But he ends up coming back after the 5 days. He was emaciated, hadn't eaten, hadn't drinking. His eyes were like hollowed out. He looked rough in the movie. And while he was gone, the police were assuming that his friends were up to no good, that they had killed and dropped his body or something, or he had done something, but they didn't trust the story of a light in the sky, So when Travis Scott comes back, his friends hold a party for him, and it's your typical party. All your friends getting together. This is an 80s party. It's like you're in the house, it's a house party. Lots of people hanging out, drinks are flowing, people are excited. And he can't deal with it, because groups like that freak him the fuck out, which is something I can understand. I get nervous and itchy around groups of people. But anyway, in order to not have to deal with it, he crawls underneath the kitchen table, and he's just under there, just hiding the fuck away from everybody. And somebody bumps the table, and there was a maple syrup, Aunt Jemima, that kind of syrup, pancake syrup, falls over, the lid's off, and it pours down on top of him. And as soon as that syrup hits him, I have no recollection, because it was almost an hour later. I'm outside the theater smoking a cigarette with zero recollection of how I got there. I remembered everything about the movie up to that point, nothing else after. I've had people tell me what happens. I've never been able to see it. Because apparently once the syrup hits his face, he flashes back to what had happened to him while in the ship. And apparently it was pretty traumatizing for him.
Hello.
Hello. So I can't watch that apparently, and that's okay. Another one that I can't finish watching is the Mothman Prophecy. I get to a certain point in that movie, and it's not that I black out or anything. I fall asleep. Like, that one just makes me go, "Wheet." But yeah. But I had a bunch of experiences like that when you line them all up, it's like something had happened. There was even a time when I was in high school. I woke up one morning exhausted, just beat. Like, I was done. And like, I've gone to bed early, full night's sleep. And when I woke up, I had on my hand, it was like a tic-tac-toe, like a hatch mark. It was in dark brown. It almost looked like like when you get really bad sunburn and then it turns into tan, and then the skin was peeling up on one side, like on one edge. And I could peel that skin and it would come off in one long strip. But it was like it was drawn on by pen, and you could peel off each line individually. So wherever they crossed was still like one solid piece. And it didn't matter which piece I dragged across, I was getting the solid piece of skin. I did it like 3 or 4 times. Because when she peeled it all off, it was like a blue-white skin underneath. And then within an hour or so, it was back to being dark brown, and the edges were peeling up. Eventually, it turned red, like a burn, or just like anything else, like a scratch. And then it just healed naturally after that. But for the first few hours, it was not behaving normally. And then also the next day, I was in the shower, and as I was washing myself on my chest here, I felt something. And when I looked down, I could see a scoop, like an indentation in my chest. And it was that same brown color, because I had not fucked with it. But this was not peeling. And I could put my finger down to my pinky finger down to my first knuckle inside this hole. It went past my chest, my rib cage. My rib has like a divot out of it. So needless to say, that was not something I played with all the time because it freaked me the fuck out, but something had pulled out, of my, like, it looked like something that had scooped out. Again, I had no recollection of anything. Like, the only thing I could said is I woke up exhausted. And throughout my life, I've had dozens of sightings. Like tens of dozens, like a lot. I would say on average 2 to 3 a year, sometimes more, never less. It actually had one a couple weeks ago. Overcast day, and it had rained, and I went out in the evening. It was probably around 10 o'clock, 11 o'clock at night, and my apartment has a courtyard, and they have a gate that they put up at night, so you can kind of hang out in the courtyard and not worry about other people coming around. It's just people that are living in the complex. And the skies had cleared, and I hadn't seen stars in a while, so I was just out there relaxing and chilling out and looking up at the stars, and I noticed movement. So I looked over, and lo and behold, there was another orb. Perfect circle. Again, perfect white blue color. And this one was just kind of not, like, moving like in little patterns. It was not fast. It was just kind of, it was moving, but it was not like this. It was like doing, like, I don't know, like it was drawing in the sky. I don't know what it was doing, but it was not going straight. And then near it was a smaller orbs. One was red, one was green. And they were static colors. So they didn't vary, they didn't blink, they didn't do anything. They were static colors. And I would say that they were to the north of where I was. Up like towards Angkor Wat, like in that direction from where I'm staying. I couldn't tell you exactly where they were over. Like I didn't see. I'm just saying in a general term. And the two colored lights got near the larger orb, and then they started to, like, they did this, like the orb was in the center and they were doing like a twirling pattern. And as they started to do the twirling pattern, they were going straight up into the sky. It almost like reminded me of like watching a helix, like a DNA helix being made. And it just went straight up. And it was going slow at first, and then it just went right up, gone. I had my phone with me, and so I tried to capture some footage. Phone's crap. Didn't do anything. I couldn't even see the dots of it. I'm like, okay, I got nothing. But I saw it. Like, it was something that I personally witnessed, and I was like, okay. So, you know, been my life. And I'm only touching the surface of it. You know, like I said, I've had dozens and dozens of encounters. I've been alone. I've been with friends. I've been with family when I've witnessed it. I've lost friends over it. You know, I've always been open about this. You know, if anyone was willing to listen, I would tell my tales of things that have happened. But the thing is, growing up in the 70s and 80s, and even in the 90s, anybody that saw these things, anybody that talked about these things, we were always criticized, or you're fucking stupid, you're a freak. Like, there was never a general consensus where you were accepted with it. The odd time a person was like, oh shit, they would share their story. But most of the time, they were quiet. And, you know, I think sometimes people just let you talk to let you talk. You know, they like you as a person. They don't want to necessarily know about the shit that made you who you are. But this definitely added to who I am, you know, because of the fact that something very odd had happened to me, and I knew about it, and I was open to talking about it, made me an outcast in society for the most part. You know, I never really fit in, which was fine. Like, I don't really mind, you know, being a bit of an introvert, not fitting in. It's kind of a good thing. But now that things are happening, so for like the last year or so, we've had, the U.S. government has been openly discussing the possibilities of these things. And, you know, as they've been having their meetings, they're getting more and more and more details, but they're vague still. And I don't have any faith that what's being told is 100% factual. My take on the current thing is that I think that the discussions or the disclosure is their hand being forced. I don't believe that the government is altruistic, or it has benign intentions when it comes to anything. When they're disclosing a thing like this, there has to be a benefit somewhere, or their hand is being played. So that if they've had dealings with these entities for years, the entities are like, listen, we've given you fucking 80 years. Start telling people now, or we're going to, you know, we're going to show our faces and fuck you. I don't know what they are. I don't know who they are. But all I know is that the things I've seen, the way that they've moved and behaved, were not possible with the the technology that we currently had, or we know we had. If the government had collected alien technology years ago, and they were using that technology for reverse engineering, and I'm sorry, but anytime that kind of stuff would happen, my mind automatically goes to the industrial, the war machine. That's it. The, finding a way to have more power. And that's what I think it comes down to, is power. The technology and those things are always going to be a powerful tool. And I don't know what changed. Like I said, I don't know why all of a sudden the disclosure's happening. I don't know, maybe they were given a timeline that they had to abide by before things happened. Or this is part of another ploy to take more control from us, because, seeing how the people behave with these kind of things happen, like en masse, not just a few random people like me that are seeing something, but where they're putting hundreds and hundreds of these into the skies. Like I said, there's the two entities. You've got the drones, and then you've got the orbs. The drones, I think, are us. At no point do I think it's anything other than military technology that's being used to either try to survey what the orbs are, or to try to offset them. Because the orbs, in a lot of the times I'm watching, are abundant. And these are like where we're seeing 50 craft at a time now off the coast of New Jersey. Something is happening. I'm thinking a big change is on the horizon. I'm all for it, to be honest. If they are an alien entity that has been around, or if they are the other one that I've been hearing, which is fascinating, is that it's an ancient civilization. They're living underwater. They're dimensional beings. Like, there's all kinds of things. And that's the fascinating thing about this whole thing, is that this is now science fiction coming to life. There is a million different possibilities of what all this could be. I don't have any of the answers. I am very curious to know what the heck is going on. I would love to know. I'd love to know why this was happening to me. Why I got to see these things. Why I got disappeared. Why is it focused on me? Why am I constantly seeing these things? Is there another story happening that I don't know about? I'm very curious at this stage. I'm 56 years old. I would, if there's a tale, this is a long ass story, to get to the punchline, man. Like, I would love to know what's going on. I don't think that the entities that I've dealt with were evil. I know that I've said that I lost memories and I freaked out, but I think that was more along the lines of how my mind was coping and dealing with the fact that whatever it was that was done to let me forget, whenever things slipped past that crack, my reaction was because of my body, my mind reacting to having memories taken. So that's what I think has happened, is that, I think I don't have bad feelings about it. I don't. I'm very curious. And man, oh man, I'm nervous about this one. This is now the third time I've tried to film this. I had, the other day I filmed this. The audio didn't work at all. Something happened within the camera where it was doing noise reduction out of nothing. Like, it was enabled on the microphone and then enabled in the camera. I tried another camera, and the video was like working in half. Like I only had half a screen. I was like, what in the hell? So I'm hoping this one actually works because I want to tell it. I've told this story to people in person, and I've let bits and pieces of this out in the past. So, but this is tip of the iceberg. Like I said, a lot of weird shit happened, and not just the UFO stuff. I've had a lot of weird shit happen in my life, and I'm okay with it. You accept things. You just gotta go, okay, I guess it's Tuesday. This is what's happening now. But I know this is going to be a divisive video. I know there's going to be people that are going to be, not into it. I get it. I'm fine with that. I expect it. But this is my story. This is something that happened to me. And didn't just happen to me, it happened to my family. And if it was just me, I'd be less prone to want to talk about it. But multiple times that I've had family with me when this happens. And, if you want to discuss it in the comment section, feel free. I at no point would expect people to want to chime in with their own stories. Here's the thing. Like I mentioned, growing up, if you talked about this stuff, you were ostracized. If the governments have known about this, and this is something that they've known about for a long time, and they've allowed, and they've directed the discourse to go in the direction that it had, wherein, the people that were talking about it were labeled as crazy. The things that have been said to me about my beliefs are atrocious. I have had very religious folks come at me telling them that I was into demons because I'd seen a UFO and I wanted to talk about it, but if the powers that be knew about this and they directed the discourse the way that they did, because you had, we've investigated it and it's swamp gas. There was an endless barrage of misinformation coming out that none of this was real. It was all made up. It was a figment of our imagination. You didn't see what you saw. Trust me, I know what you saw. That kind of stuff. And trying to make me feel crazy, or making us feel like we were crazy. And if they knew about this, and they knew about it the entire time, and they let society do that to us, then fuck them. Because that's just not right. I understand some things having to be kept secret. I don't think this is one of those things. Again, I think this is one of the things where they've known about it, they've collected technology, and they are keeping it secret because of the fact that there is something to be gotten out of it. It's a power play for those that are in power. But I don't trust any of them in power at all. I honestly believe that, they're in power for power. I don't believe in politicians are being altruistic. I don't think that they have the people they're not looking out for. The fact that we now label a corporation as an entity, that they can basically vote. And you've got just, I hate all of it. I hate all of it. And again, this whole thing of me seeing the UFOs has built my distrust in the narrative. Like, I don't necessarily trust when the government says that, this is what it is. It's like, I listen, I pay attention, but again, I want to get 15 different sources before I make a decision. I'm not just going to blindly follow. I'm one of those people that I want more information before I find out stuff. And again, that's why it's taken me a couple weeks to make this video, because I wanted to see more and more. It's like, I know that there's videos out there that are manufactured. I know that there are stories that are bullshit. I get it. But I wanted to understand the basic bits. And that's where I'm at. It's been a wild adventure to say the very least for me. But like I said, if you guys want to have open discussions in the comments, feel free. If you want to ask more questions of me, feel free. You know, I'm down. You know, um, you know, I get it. This is, like I said, it's the weird one, but it's something I wanted to make. Anyway, if you are still here and you like my content, please feel free to like, comment, share, subscribe. And as always, if you are so inclined you want to see something else, not UFO oriented, see a link over here, another one of my videos. Anyway, I will see you guys soon. Take care, everybody. Bye.